This is your practice programming number 4, so 2.3.4. After you've done the motor exercises and the bump switch exercise, you need to do the limit switch exercise. The limit switch exercise says wait for the limit switch to be touched before both motors turn on at half power. Wait until the bump switch is pressed, then stop the motors. So we're kind of combining the limit switch with the bump switch. We're going to use the limit switch as an on button and the bump switch as an off button. So let's get started. Open up your Robot C for Vex Robotics. And of course, first thing is first. Let's open up our sample program. Go to your PLTW folder. Open the PLTW template. Now check the platform type. Remember, the platform type should be 2.0 Cortex and Natural Language PLTW. And the communication mode should be USB only. So once those things are all under control, let's get started. Our project title is 2.3.4 Practice Programming. Our team members, same as before, you're working on your own, so just type your name right here. The date, today when I'm making these is October 4th, but type whatever day it is today for you. And your section is your bell number, so bell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever bell you are, type your bell. Now the task description, just like always, comes from our worksheet. Wait for the limit switch to be touched before both motors turn on at half power. Wait until the bump switch is pressed, then stop the motors. So, wait for the limit switch to be pressed, then start both motors at half power. Wait for the bump switch, to be pressed, then stop both motors. Okay, so that's the task description. Now for the pseudocode, we're going to break it down into line by line. The first thing we're going to do is wait for the limit switch to be pressed. Then we're going to start both motors at half power. Then we're going to wait for the bump switch to be pressed. Then we're going to stop both motors. Okay, so the task description and the pseudocode, just like always, they're very similar, but the pseudocode kind of breaks up the task description, so we start getting into what our code's going to look like line by line. Now in task main, we're going to start our code. Again, you don't need this comment, so go ahead and delete it. Before you get too far into your code, I recommend saving your work. As always, go to File, Save As, click over here on Computer, find your user drive, and call it 2.3.4 Practice Programming number 4. So this one's number 4. Alright, now let's start pulling in our code. Open up your natural language, go to movement, and that's actually not where we need to be. We need to wait for the limit switch to be pressed. So when we do the limit switch, it's going to code just like the bump switch did. So if you remember number 3, when you coded the bump switch, you used until touch. So do until touch, pull this in, and instead of bump switch, we're going to wait for the limit switch. So type limit switch, capitalize the S. Your comment, 2 forward slashes, wait for the limit switch to be pressed. Alright, so wait for the limit switch to be pressed, start both motors at half power. Now I'm going to go to my movement and pull in my start motor, start motor. Remember, just like the last 2 codes, it doesn't matter which one you start first. Robot C reads this code so fast, it's going to look like they both start at the same time. So you could do right motor, left motor, or left motor, right motor, it doesn't matter. They'll both start at the same time. Remember to capitalize the M. And for half power, do you guys remember what half power is? Good, half power 63. So the comment for this line, // start right motor at half power or half speed. And the comment for this line, // start left motor at half speed. Now, we're going to wait for the bump switch to be pressed and then stop both motors. So the bump switch, just like last time, is until touch. Until touch, bump switch, capitalize the S, add your comment, wait for the bump switch to be pressed. Oops. And then we're going to pull into stop motors. Stop motor, stop motor. Doesn't matter if you stop the right motor or the left motor first. It'll look like they're both stopping at the same time. Add your comments. Stop right motor. Stop left motor. Okay. Now, nothing's turning red because we're not compiled. Click on compile. Robot C checks your code. We forgot to define our variables. So if you look up here, we have red X's at 23, 24, 25, and 26. 23, 24, 25, and 26. Our error is undefined variable, undefined variable, undefined variable. Why are all these things undefined? Well, that's because we didn't define them. We didn't do motors and sensor setup. Robot C has no idea what's plugged in, where it is, or what we called it. So go to motors and sensor setup. Start with your motors. Let's put right motor in port 1. It's of X393. And let's put left motor in port 10. Also of X393. We don't know if they need to be reversed yet, so for now, let's just leave that alone. Go to your digital sensors, VEX Cortex digital sensors. Go ahead and put your bump switch. Oops, don't forget to capitalize the W. Put your bump switch in digital 1, that's a touch sensor. And put your limit switch in digital 2, that's also a touch sensor. Apply, and OK. Now you see digital 1, remember we talked about this before, DGTL1. That's not digital 11, it's digital 1, is a bump switch, and it's a touch sensor. Digital 12 is a limit switch, also a touch sensor. Port 1 and port 10 is your right motor, left motor, VEX 393s. Now, we can go down to our code, compile it again, and everything is right with the world. Our code is very happy, no X's. We've got all of our multi-line comments at the beginning. We've got our pragma statements. We've got our code. You guys are ready to download. So, get your Cortex, plug your motors into port 1 and port 10. Plug your bump switch and your limit switch into the digital ports. Make sure they're in digital ports, not analog. Plug them into digital 1 and digital 2 respectively. And then go get your orange cable and your battery. Plug everything in and download to the robot. Once you download to the robot and see that everything works, you are finished and you can check off code 4. Good job, guys. Save your work again and print it. Go to File, Print, and make sure you print to Harrison GTT 4250. You should always print to 4250. And when you print, remember, the printer's going to shoot out an extra piece of paper. That's okay. Just take your code and put that blank piece of paper back on the printer. I'll put it back inside for it to print on again later. Thanks, guys. Good job. Number 4, complete.